My name is Sephora Snow.
My name is Richard Ragudo, known in Indian country as Razzle Dazzle.
What was your favorite memory growing up?
My favorite memory of growing up is when we used to go to the swimming hole. It was called the Bridge House, and it was right out there going towards Jackson. And then they had another swimming hole they called Slough House. And every weekend, everybody from the neighborhood, everybody would go to the swimming place. That was a really nice memory.
Can you share about any elders who have influenced your connection to or understanding of your culture?
You know, to be honest with you, it was a time in my life when I wanted to make a change. And we didn't have very many role models in our days. And our grandpas and them, you know, because of the boarding schools and because of the effect of alcohol and drugs and the so-called dysfunctional families, we were more or less on our own, you know, and so therefore, when I made a change in my life, I began to have spirit helpers. And when I say spirit helpers, you know, they talk about the eagle, they talk about the buffalo, they talk about the coyote, you know, they talk about Grandma Moon. And the elders that we learned by was the stone people, because we started going to ceremonies. And so those, they call them elders, you know, and the rocks we adapted to Sweat Lodge. And you know, that those it's just lessons that I learned in my life, and that Indian people call it the Red Road. When you're on the Red Road, you know, we didn't go to church to get any type of values or principles, you know, that instilled in us. You know, we just we didn't have too much things of emotions. It seemed like it, you know. I remember one time I went to a program and they asked me about these different emotions, and I told them I don't know what those things are. I know if you're happy, you're happy. If you're sad, you're sad, and if you, that's it. That's all you know. Two basic things: happy and sad. You know, so as far as elders, you know, I didn't have anybody to guide me, you know, because of the historical trauma that Indian people have.
Delmar Boyd.
And my name is Richard Ragudo, but in Indian country I'm known as the Razzle Dazzle.
What did you want to do when you grew up?
Well, earlier I said we really didn't have any influence or any type of direction. We did a lot of drinking, a lot of drugging. That was just the way we lived. I come from the era of the 60s. So that hippie era, I was there in Haight-Ashbury with those hippies, and we didn't have any type of motivation of so growing up, we grew up with alcohol and drugs. But then again, in time, you know, we made a change. I never knew in life that I am now a spiritual leader in Indian country. I didn't know I was going to grow up to be a spiritual leader. It was just a path that I took, you know, and now here I am an elder, you know, and looking back and thinking about it, being an elder is a very beautiful place to be within our culture. You know, to be a grandpa, to be the uncle, you know, it's a lot of responsibility that we hold, you know, as people in the community. That when we call you nephew or grandson, then we have an obligation of responsibility. So we say nephew, then it's our responsibility. For any time you need help and you come to uncle, and you know that you have that person in your life. You know, Indian, they say auntie, grandma. We have a way in our Indian way of being family. So that's kind of how that works.
Can you share your first powwow or culture ceremony experience?
Yeah, my first cultural experience of all places was there was a. I'm going to talk a lot about alcoholism and drug addiction within this time because that was my process. I went to a place called Three Rivers Indian Lodge. And at that time, it was the first time I got introduced to a drum. They had people there from different nations, and they were on that drum, and they were drumming and singing songs, and that was the first contact that I had culturally. And it literally, it was so emotional that part and that change in my life where I was going, that all this time, where I had been in my addiction, living in darkness, and it was my first awakening to be connected with that drum. And with that said, that was when I first walked this path called the Red Road. And then I got introduced to a sweat lodge, and then I got introduced to a Sundance. A Sundance is when I went to Lakota's and we did Sundance ceremonial. They would put buffalo skulls on our back and we would drag them around, and we would suffer for our people. That's where I ended up with that spiritual experience. And I ended up getting the name Kamukana because I became a dancer, a powwow dancer. Just beautiful, and then I became a captain. Now I have my own group, but that's the first connection that I had was with the drum.